Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general mid-month reading for the sign of Capricorn, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the last 2 weeks of July. I hope you're well. I'm using the Tarot of the Abyss for you today. It's glorious sunshine here today, which is wonderful. I hope it's nice where you are too. Right, if you haven't seen these readings before, I structure them slightly differently to the main monthly readings in so much as we are looking for the lesson. I think that there is a lesson or perhaps wisdom contained within every experience that we have, and it's sometimes easier to navigate what can be occasionally challenging energy if we can work out why we're there in the first place. It is essentially an exercise in perspective. So to that end, what I will do is pull 3 cards for your current energy and see where you are right now. Then we will pull 3 cards and ask what the reason is for being there. And sometimes it's to teach you something about yourself. Sometimes it's showing you what needs to be released from your life, you know, or what needs to be brought in sometimes. We won't know until the cards hit the table. And then we'll finish out with 3 cards of advice and see. Oh, let's just see what comes up. So I'm going to put a little bit more of this in here. And can I have 3 cards for Capricorn, please? I've got 2. We have the 6 of Swords. That's interesting. We have the Knight of Pentacles. 1 more, please. Thank you. We have the 10 of Swords. This is really interesting, Capricorn. And we've got the Chariot card at the bottom of the deck. The reason why it's really, really interesting is because I do a meditation before I start any of these readings. It's part of my practice before I start the video recording. And I felt kind of pulled sideways. It's the only way to really explain how I felt, right? And I heard, I am moved. And I was like, Capricorn is moved. How is Capricorn moved? But what I'm seeing here are cards that are absolutely reflecting that. You know, with the Chariot, we have movement. And I have to say, I've just noticed, underneath there, we have the King of Cups. There is emotional movement going on for you here, Capricorn, and that's why it feels so profound, actually, is the way to put it. And the Chariot card, as well as speaking of movement, is a card of the self. Right? There's something shifting and something changing within you, Capricorn. And we're seeing it reflected down here too, because we have the 6 of Swords and we have the Knight of Pentacles and the 10 of Swords. Now, if we can just go to the 10 of Swords for a second. 10s always indicate completion, right? There are cycles within cycles inside the tarot, and one of the cycles is the Ace to the 10. Now, the minor arcana is often signifying those cycles that are under our control, right? So it's not about the external influences that are coming in that are quite often indicated by the major arcana. It's about the way that we react to things, the way we perceive things, the actions that we take to deal with what is going on inside of us. And the 10 of Swords is speaking to a completion of a very painful period of your life. Right? Now, it might be that your life has actually been, you know, relatively comfortable for the last few years. But I feel like this is a fairly big cycle that has seen you wrestling with things that perhaps you haven't really wanted to look at that much. I've been castigated at times by Capricorns who believed that I was saying that Capricorns resolutely ignore their feelings all of the time, and I have responded to that a couple of times. You are not, right? You're highly sensitive creatures, actually very intuitive, and I think underrated intuitives. And there are a million things for which you can consult your feelings about and come to, you know, an answer that you are comfortable with. But there are many things that are hidden deep inside And they are the things, they are the feelings that are painful to consult with, and they are the wounds that run really, really deep. So before, the Capricorn moon placement is one that is specifically related to childhood trauma. But such is the intensity of that, it spills out into Capricorn ascendant, it spills out into Capricorn sun. And this painful period of your life may well track back to childhood. It may be possible to do that. But I feel like the things about your life that have been painful recently have had a catalyst somewhere else, you know? Often these things come up to show you that the trauma exists from childhood, that there is a repetition, a cycle that is being carried out here. And what I'm seeing is you seeing that. And engaging with the deepest part of you. For a very specific reason, and that specific reason is to allow yourself to be released from it, to be freed from it. We have the Six of Swords here, and that is a card of moving away from something, you know. Well, that something's going to be the Five of Swords. And the Five of Swords, it can talk about not getting the attention that one needed as a child. Not in an attention-seeking way, but just in a loving and nurturing way. It can talk about people not speaking to you. It can talk about people speaking to you that you'd rather didn't, actually. But it can also talk about those cognitive loops that we get stuck in. You know, the narrations that our ego speak to. The way that we see ourselves, the way that we interpret the world around us. I'm drawn here by the fact that this particular Six of Swords has someone elevating above an absolute maelstrom here. And that's often the way that I have felt Capricorns exist, like there's such a deep swell of emotion within them. And I'm not talking about the day-to-day sensitivities that you can navigate really, really well. I'm talking about something that is really deep and really trapped within you. It feels like you're getting to a point now, Capricorn, where you're not only willing to engage with it, well, acknowledge it, but you're also willing to engage with it. You're willing to let it go. You're willing to move beyond it. We have this Knight of Pentacles here, which is Virgo energy, mutable earth. And it seems to me that that's the most useful of your sister earth signs in terms of energy that you could employ. It's about movement. Slow, yes, but steady. One that is guaranteed to get the job done. Now, Capricorns are also incredibly efficient creatures. You don't like doing something if there's a better way to do it, if there's a smarter way to do it. And the way that this energy is reading here is that the Six of Swords here and the Chariot with the King of Cups is the goal. The route through is the Knight of Pentacles. And the Ten of Swords is what needs to be navigated so that you can be free. There are so many birds off in the distance of the Ten of Swords here, you know. It doesn't feel exciting. Right? There's no thrill, there's no drama here. There's no actual huge goal that would lead to a sense of achievement at the other end. But there's a lightening of spirit that is now required for you. It's like this way of being cannot continue anymore. and you know that, you acknowledge it, and you're willing to engage with the Ten of Swords that is stopping you from being able to get on the back of a bird and sail over the top of your emotions. See them for what they are, but be free of them. Let's get some cards for the lesson, although it seems very much that's a question that's answered. Can you tell about the lesson? What is being told to Capricorn here? Thank you. Thank you. Whoa. We have the Three of Cups, we have the Eight of Swords, and we have the Seven of Swords. And looking at these swords here, and this is a very sword heavy reading, Capricorn, but I actually like the fact that it is sword heavy for you here, because that tells me that you are consciously processing this now. The Seven of Swords is a card that deals with deception. It deals with, I mean, sometimes with underhand behavior and things like that, but actually, ultimately, just deception. In this reading, anyway. And it is the things that you told yourself to keep yourself safe. It is the narrative that your ego wrote for you to keep you safe. And the narrative that you wrote was that you don't need other people. Just fell off my table there. That you don't need emotional support. That you can do it for yourself. It's all fine. You know, it's fine. It's fine, you know. The dog with the mug and the fire everywhere. You know, that meme. If you don't need something, then you don't miss it when you don't have it. But the problem with that is that there has come a point where that which kept you safe, or at least you thought kept you safe for a long time, is now the thing that has got you there. And I feel like you understand that that's where you are now, Capricorn. Yeah. Because actually, just like everybody else, you deserve emotional support. Not because of what you've achieved, not because of what you've done, but by virtue of the fact that you are a person, you're a human being, and you have emotions, and you are sensitive, and these really deep feelings. Have often seemed like something that was in some way a flaw in you. You know, it could well be that your early childhood experiences actually showed you that emotions were things that got you into trouble. Emotions were things that had people kind of rolling their eyes at you. And I would imagine this is particularly true if you have any water in your chart. I'm thinking specifically moon placement, maybe Venus. But what we've got here is a journey that you're on. It's a process, Capricorn. And being entirely honest with yourself, being entirely open with yourself, is going to lead to a feeling of vulnerability. Because the reason that you were like this in the first place was to protect you from that. To protect you from further hurt, but it is restricting you. It has been restricting you for a long time, and I really do feel that now you are so ready to burst out of that and address what really lies deeply. Because in some ways it could be that where you are right now is good. Right? Where you are right now is somewhere that you can feel, or you should be able to feel, a whole deal of gratitude for, but there's something missing. There's something that's just kind of blocking the way. And it's difficult to work out what that is. Definitely seems to run down the maternal line for you, Capricorn. I'm looking at this Three of Cups here, and we have what looks to be like the Mother and the Crone. And that would make you the Maiden. So maybe you've had an issue with your mother, and maybe you had an issue with your grandmother too. Or maybe the issue with your mother stemmed from the fact that your mother had an issue with her mother. It's coming down through the generations. But it looks to me like you are the first of this line in quite a long time to be willing to reflect, to be willing to turn around and have a look and see what is missing. Really bring it into your consciousness, really analyze it and move beyond it. And that simple fact there, that you want to be open to emotional support. You want to feel the benefit of emotional support. You want to be emotionally on a level with the people that are around you. Is the reason why you are here. Is the reason why you are at this juncture right now, Capricorn. It's big. It's a big energy, and it's a brave energy. Can I have some cards of advice for Capricorn, please? Thank you. Wow. We have the Page of Wands, we have Death, and we have the High Priestess. We have the Four of Swords at the bottom of the deck, and it does, with the King of Cups again underneath it here. The Four of Swords card, it's a card of rest. It's often a card of recuperation after heartbreak, right? Because it follows on from the Three of Swords. But it's also a card of withdrawal, right? It's a card of learning which swords can be put down and for how long you can put them down, you know. And this whole reading here has been very sword heavy, you know. There's a lot of thinking energy, there's a lot of cerebral energy here. When one starts on this path, you tend to find that there is a lot of mental energy going on where you're trying to process all of the things that you know, but ultimately it comes down to using your heart to process it rather than your mind, Capricorn. And I feel like you're on the brink of being able to do that, of opening up enough to be able to do that, because we have the Page of Wands here, and that is the beginning stages of doing something. Right here, this Page of Wands is gathering firewood to light the fire. It isn't quite the action yet, but it's all the groundwork that is necessary in order to carry the action out. Right? In this case, gathering firewood, ready to start the fire. But it's the beginning of a change of direction for you, Capricorn. Because with this Death card and this High Priestess, the path that you are on is going to lead inexorably to an enormous transformation for you. An ability to get in touch with the feminine wisdom that has not entirely, but certainly partially been blocked. By the difficult experiences of your youth. And some of you might go, well, my childhood was perfectly acceptable, you know, it was fine. You know, nothing really much to report there. But that in and of itself is quite an interesting thing. Because a childhood should be full of joy. It shouldn't be all right, you know. And some of you will know specifically where this trauma emanates from. There will be specific examples of specific events, you know. For others of you, it would be emotional neglect, maybe even physical neglect. But for others, it's the realization that the joy was missing from your childhood that is the thing that will act as the tower for you. I actually saw the tower when I picked up the deck before. There was one card left and it was the tower. And there was a sort of towery energy looming around. Because maybe it's been 30 years, 40 years since you were a child and you hadn't really thought about it that much. Too busy going forwards to spend too much time looking backwards. But now sitting and consciously reflecting on your childhood, I think a lot of you are going to find that it was entirely absent of joy. It was absent of light energy, carefree energy. And here begins your transformation. Capricorn, if you are willing to submit to it, and I think increasingly those of you who are watching my channel are, because the High Priestess has a door here for you. In fact, the Death is pointing towards the High Priestess. There's the Death card. She's got her hand out and she's pointing towards the High Priestess. There. And there is a doorway at the back. The High Priestess is about bringing balance to you, being willing to be open to the new emotional experiences that are coming. And they're coming in hot, Capricorn. If you try and control it too much, you're going to come a cropper with this one though. It's about open acceptance. It's, you know, as I've said a number of times, Capricorn doesn't like being necessarily a beginner at things. Like, you like to kind of get through that bit pretty fast, and usually you do because you're very capable. You pick up things very swiftly, you know. But you like to be in a position where you understand what you're doing. You like to be in a position of excellence in everything that you do. And this is going to require you to be a beginner, to start carefully. You're gathering all the firewood, but there isn't yet a fire. And there are more steps, there's more of a process to go through before you're going to get to the point where you're able to sit down and warm yourself by that fire. And that process will be the thing that transforms you. It's a very spiritual reading despite all of the swords, Capricorn. And if you can apply 1/10 of your skill set and your mental acuity and your work ethic to your own development, you're going to fly. It feels very much like what I'm seeing here is gearing you up for a very big change of direction. Whether that is with your work or where you live or the way that you live. And I think that that one is going to be the one that kicks in the hardest for most people. It's a reading of groundwork. Right? And I've done enough of these to see where they start to lead after this. And like I said, it's not quite there yet, but it's coming. And the way that this is reading, I wouldn't be surprised if this enormous change of direction doesn't happen before the end of the year. Because all of these cards here are minor arcana. These are all about the work that you are doing, and I'm looking at the journey, I'm looking at the path here. When we get down to the Page of Wands, right, you actively picking up the sticks and taking them over to the fire. It looks like this is where the universe steps in, right, and blows on this spark. So for now, the Knight of Pentacles is absolutely the best approach to be taking. Slow and steady, but thorough and consistent. Because it looks like things might get quite interesting for you by the end of the year. Right, Capricorn, I'm going to leave it there. I think I waffled a bit longer than I meant to anyway. Know that I love you all very, very much. And I will see you soon.